Hey guys, Brendan here. I've hit a wall for video ideas recently. So what do you do when you hit a wall for video ideas? You go to Reddit, and then you ask them for reptile questions, of course. So I did that, and I got some questions. Let's get into it. Stoic Lemon asks, are reptiles capable of bonding with a human owner in a similar way to cats or dogs? Which reptile would make the best pet in terms of the fun you can have with it in that way? That is an excellent question. Oftentimes, people will seek out reptiles as a first pet because, for the most part, a lot of reptiles are easier to keep than a cat or a dog. However, to answer that question, most reptiles don't have that kind of bond with their owner. For the most part, reptiles don't recognize you as being an individual human. Rather, they associate you with an action, and thus associate every human with that action. If you feed your leopard gecko, for example, at a certain day at a certain time every week, it doesn't really matter which person is doing the feeding. That gecko will be ready for food at that time. To add, if you tame down a leopard gecko, you can hand that leopard gecko to anybody and it will be just fine, assuming that person knows how to handle geckos. Now, this isn't to say that reptiles don't enjoy human interaction. In fact, many reptiles do. However, to reptiles, they don't really care who is doing the interacting. As for a reptile that acts like a cat or a dog, I would say a tegu or a monitor. Both of these lizard groups have higher intelligence than other reptiles and can actually be very interactive. They display a certain level of awareness that is more akin to a dog than, say, a bearded dragon. That being said, they still don't bond. However, that doesn't mean they're boring. Quite the contrary. Dominator4444 asks, how often should I be taking my Russian tortoise for walks? I don't want him getting too fat or busting out of his shell or anything. I'll start this off by saying I actually have a Russian tortoise. It was my first reptile and his name is Mikey. Now, with Mikey, I only take him out on spare occasions. Assuming you have a large enough enclosure for your tortoise, you'll never need to take them out. Build them a large enclosure and they should be perfectly fine. However, if you do take them out, make sure that any weeds or grass in that area is pesticide free, and that the area is closed off so that outside threats can't get to your tortoise. Ultimately, there is no time frame for this. Take them out whenever you want to take them out. Just make sure they're safe when you're doing so. Hey kid, it's Dad asks, how do reptiles move so fast? What's the fastest? They're like lightning. If dinosaurs moved that fast, they must have been terrifying. I absolutely agree. I'm glad the dinosaurs are extinct. Although chickens are still running around, and that's a tad terrifying, isn't it? Now for the fastest reptile. I wish this was a definitive answer, but it's not. Sources vary a lot on which one is the fastest. Now, in the Guinness Book of World Records, the fastest land snake is the black mamba, which clocks in at 19 kilometers per hour, which is roughly 11 miles per hour. Now, the fastest general reptile is believed to be the green sea turtle, which clocks in at 22 miles per hour. As for the fastest land reptile in general, there's no definitive one. Some sources say it's the parenti, which is a monitor lizard native to Australia. One even said it's the bearded dragon, which is hilarious if you've ever seen a bearded dragon. So on. As for how do they move so fast, it really depends on the species. However, I'd say it has a lot to do with most reptiles not having any unnecessary fat. Lizards in general also tend to be very close to the ground and have a rather balanced frame that allows them to move quickly without much resistance. You'll notice that even big lizards can move fast, mostly just due to their slender frame and how close to the ground their build is. And finally, the last question of this video, 1 Minute with Tina asks, do reptiles have a family unit like humans? I mean a husband, wife, and kids, or do they simply follow any tail they see? I really like this question. I love this question. Well, for the most part, no. Most reptiles will mate with numerous partners, and most of the time, they will just move on. Now, the reason I like this question is because it gives me the opportunity to talk about a little-known reptile that actually does have some semblance of a family structure. Solomon Island skinks, also called the prehensile-tailed skink, is this weird exception. They give birth to live young and will actually raise their young for up to 6 months to 12 months in a group called a circulus. Now, a circulus is basically a group of parent skinks and possibly other skinks. And what's even weirder is that all members of the circulus will protect the young skinks. So even ones that are not the skinks' parents will protect the skinks. This is very, very rare in reptiles, but not many people know that this is actually something that happens in a few species. So to answer your question, 9 times out of 10, no, they don't have a family structure. Unless you're a Solomon Island skink or one of the few other species, and I mean like few, that do that weird circulus thing. Anyway, that about wraps it up. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I really enjoyed the questions I got from Reddit. I actually got so many questions that I'm definitely going to be making a part 2 because there was a lot more good ones that didn't make it into this video. If you guys have any questions you want to ask about reptiles, comment below, and your question may be featured in a future video. So, you know, if you got a good question, leave it below. Anyways, until next time, have a good one.